Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Moira and this video is going to be the final installment for my Arki must-have series. So since this is going to be the series finale, susulitin na natin to. So I got a lot of categories planned kasi hindi ko sila nasingit sa previous videos ko. And also because I was thinking of making a video all about rendering materials, but then I realized I am not the best at manual rendering, so I'm not the best at giving tips or advice about it. So I just decided to add more categories to this video. So today we are going to be discussing rendering materials, some drafting materials, site visit must-haves, and of course, ang pinaka-requested sa akin simula pa dati, recommended books for architecture as well as the best laptops for architecture. So ayan na, I gave in, we're gonna discuss it. So without further ado, let's jump right into this video. Woo! Now let's talk about rendering materials. For your first few years of college, you will be rendering manually, so you're gonna need something to color with. And the most common rendering material to use in architecture are markers, specifically Color markers. I think that's the most popular brand out there. So a Color marker looks like this. I don't know if they have different packaging now, but basically one side has one side has a broader tip so that you could apply it easily, and then the other side has a finer tip for all your details. And I put a washi tape on mine so that it won't get stolen. Alam nyo, in Arki, cellphone nyo, hindi yan mananakaw, wallet nyo, hindi yan mananakaw, pero yung mga markers nyo, pencils nyo, mananakaw yan for sure. So the reason why we use markers is because the paper that we also use the most are tracing paper or like hopia paper. Markers are the best rendering material to apply to that kind of paper, and it really sticks. For the color selection, you might get overwhelmed because they have a wide array of colors. So I am here to help you in my own little way. Again, I'm not the best at rendering, so you could take my advice or leave it, but I survived Arki, so I know a thing or two. I suggest that when you're choosing colors, you choose the ones that are more earth tone or muted colors. Basically colors that you will see in the natural environment. I recommend that you get shades of greens for, again, the plants in your entourage. Blues for the sky, water, as well as your glass windows. Browns, now this one I think is the most abundant thing that you should have. You could use it for tree trunks, for different kinds of wood, which you will be rendering a lot of wood, especially if you want that more neutral color scheme in your drawings. I also recommend that you get a lot of grays, again, for road, concrete, for shadows, and you should also have some shades of yellow for sunlight and also artificial lighting. Again, stick to the more muted colors because they just look better. Don't go for brighter colors because it's just gonna look very preschool-like. Trust me, I've done that mistake before. Now I'm going to be flashing some colors that I recommend you to get. These are some of the ones that I really liked using when I was still an architecture student. Another color that I recommend for you to get is something that you don't necessarily need, but I highly recommend that you buy a marker in your favorite color. Sabi nga ni Marie Kondo, if it sparks joy, you should keep it. So I bought one in pink. Honestly, I've almost never used this in my college life, but every time I see it, it makes me so happy. So if you're materialistic like me, buy a marker in your favorite color. And then I also recommend for you to buy like a lunch box or a makeup pouch for your markers. This is what my marker bag looks like. It's so cute. I got it from Forever 21 years ago. And then when you open it, tada, you can see all the colors. So it's much easier to see what you have. Just makes your life more convenient. Another brand of markers that is really popular is Copic markers. I've had some classmates use it, but it's pricier than Color, so I was like, bye. But I do hear that it works well too. Another rendering material that you are gonna use is colored pencils. You can buy just like the basic 24-piece set from like Faber-Castell, and that's good to go. Colored pencils are good to use when you're adding more detail to your drawings. It also works well on tracing paper when you mix it with the markers, again, to create more detail. On its own, I guess you could also use it, but I think it's gonna take a lot more time. Next, we have paint. When I was a student, I also used watercolor paint for some of my plates. I guess it depends on each university, but we had that subject where we were just free to use whatever medium that we liked. So sometimes I chose watercolor just to try it, if I could like do it. So I don't know if it's like necessary for all schools, but you might as well buy one so that you could also explore which medium you work best with. Next, we're gonna talk about some drafting materials and accessories that you will be needing. I made a video before about pens and pencils that you can use in architecture, link down below. Actually, I'll just link the whole Arki must-haves playlist. You can go ahead and check out the other episodes if you haven't yet. So these are like other accessories that you need that I haven't discussed in that video yet. First, we have your canister. Daming terms nito, canister, tube, whatever, but basically this is what it looks like, and this is where you put all your plates. So you roll it up and you just put it here and you put it over your shoulder, tapos yun, babanggain mo na lahat ng nasa jeep. When you buy a canister, I definitely recommend that you buy something like this where it's a lot bigger so that you could also fit a lot more papers in here. I just got this from National Bookstore, so available naman siya almost everywhere. Next, you need to have an eraser because you need things to erase. I recommend buying more than just one because again, just like your pens and pencils, you're gonna be losing a lot of your erasers. You also need to have a sharpener on hand. I recommend the little ones with its own container so that you don't have to go to the trash can every time you're gonna sharpen something. Next, you will also need to have a stapler all the time because your plates will usually consist of more than just one page, so you're gonna need to staple it when you pass it to your professor, and so that you won't bother your classmates anymore, just buy one for yourself. Next, we also have a compass, and no, it's not the compass that you use to locate north, south, west, east. A compass is like this accessory where you put in a pen or a pencil in order to draw perfect circles. I recommend that you buy one like without the pencil yet. Then you can insert either a pen or a pencil, which is more useful for your plates anyways. Next, we have the drafting brush, which is my favorite because it's just so satisfying. Drafting brush is basically just a brush that you use after drafting to clean up your table. You just go like that and all the bits from your eraser just goes away, and it's to make sure also that your plate is clean. Lastly, of course, you're gonna need your drafting table. I kind of discussed this in the first video. Basically, you need to have a drafting table that's at least 36 inches. I've only ever used wood because it was cheaper. Some people have drafting tables made out of glass, and it also helps with like tracing because you can just put on a light tapos pwede mo na siya i-trace. Next, I'm going to discuss some things that you need to have for site visits. So when you're an architecture student, sometimes you're gonna get to go to site visits for buildings that are under construction. We usually did that like at least once a sem. So the most important thing that you're gonna need is a construction hat. So tada, this is my construction hat. Ooh. For architecture, you need to have the color white. When I went into architecture, I didn't know that there was like color codes for construction hats. So I thought I could like wear something pink, ganon. Pero hindi. White pala dapat for architects. Another thing that you're gonna need is a good pair of rubber shoes. And guys, dapat yung rubber shoes na to, okay lang na madubihan because you don't know whether the site's gonna be muddy or whatever, especially kung umulan, ganon. There was one time where I wore my brand new white rubber shoes to a site visit / activity, and this is what I ended up with. Very, very sad. I also learned a lot that you should have a pair of rubber shoes na nabinyagan na para hindi ka na magsisi. Now, let's talk about some books about architecture. Now, whenever I get asked about books that I recommend for architecture, I'm always like, I don't know what to answer because when I was an Arki student, I never had any books about architecture. I studied in UP, so walang books talaga. Kung may papabasahin man sa amin, papaserox lang sa amin, ganon. But now, natuto na ako, and medyo may alam na rin naman ako. So, I'm gonna be recommending some. The most important books that you need to have when you're an architecture student are about codes. So, you need to have the National Building Code and the Fire Code of the Philippines. These are like yung pinaka-importante, and you're also gonna need it for when you have a subject subject about building laws. Other books that I recommend is The Visual Dictionary of Architecture by Francis D.K. Ching. I've heard a lot about this book throughout the years and ngayon lang ako bumili. I just bought it last night from Shopee. I'll link it down below if you want to buy one. It's also good that you have a book that shows the architectural graphic standards so that you could visualize things better. Another book that I also bought last night is called Architecture 101. I just saw it on Fully Booked sa Shopee. So sabi ko, why not? It looks good and I think it has a lot of facts about architecture. It's by an international author, so more of architecture around the world siya, I think. And then another book that I've heard about is The 101 Things I Learned in Architecture School, but sadly I wasn't able to find any online. I think sa Amazon lang ganon. And also, if you want to learn more about Filipino architecture, there's a book called Arkitekturang Filipino and it's by a professor of mine, Sir Gerard Lico. He also has a lot of other books that he's published also about Filipino architecture. I also wasn't able to find a copy. Parang sa Amazon lang din siya. Kung makahanap kayo, maganda rin yun because it's also good to know about the architecture scene here locally. And finally, let's talk about laptops. Now again, this is something that I always get asked about, but again, I couldn't really answer it kasi, well, hello, hindi ko naman ma-review lahat ng laptops out there. Wala tayong budget para magganon. In general, gaming laptops are the best when it comes to architecture. Yung hindi mo na kailangan isipin yung specs, ganon. Basta, if it's good for gaming, then it's also good for architecture. Now, if you're trying to find specific models, I can't really help you with that kasi, girl, ang daming models ng laptops. Okay, again, hindi ko sila maiisa-isa na tignan. Pero kasi this year, I'm planning to buy a new laptop. Hopefully, makaipon tayo. So, I've also done a lot of research and I also had a professor before na nag-recommend siya ng mga specs. So, eto na. I'm gonna give them to you. When you're looking for a laptop, it's not just about the model that you need to look for, but it's also the specs that you need to check. Kasi, well, that's what makes a laptop. So, it's very important that you're knowledgeable about those things. Well, first of all, Windows versus Mac, I definitely recommend Windows. I didn't know anyone in my school who used Mac. It was definitely discouraged kasi nga iba yung OS niya, so mahihirapan ka pa. For CPU, it has to be at least Intel i5 or recommended is i7. For the GPU or the processor, it has to be at least NVIDIA, hindi ko lang paano yung pronounce, GTX 1060. I don't know how to pronounce these terms because again, I'm not very techy, pero basta yun yung sabi ng prof ko. For the RAM, it has to be at least 8 gig, pero recommended is 16 gig. For the drive, you need to have an SSD hard drive. For the size of the laptop, I definitely recommend 15 inches so that it's a wider screen. You can view a lot more with whatever you're working on. And also because it usually means it will come with a numerical keypad, which is very useful when you're drafting floor plans on your computer. For the brands, as long as it's like a trusted brand, okay na yun. Like Lenovo, Dell, Asus, whatever. Di naman ako mapili when it comes to brands as long as yun nga, trusted. So yeah, those are some things that you need to take note of when you're choosing a laptop. Again, I'm not the techiest person out there, so I can't really explain all those specs in its entirety. But those are again what I researched, but also things I learned from my professors and also from my peers. Now here is a recap of everything that I just discussed. But guys, that is it for Arki must-haves. Again, I will link all the other episodes down below. There's a playlist if you want to watch from episode 1. And yeah, thank you so much for supporting this series and hopefully it will help even just one Arki student out there. Let me know if you have any other suggestions for future videos that I'm gonna make. Anyways, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit subscribe and also don't forget to click on the notification bell if you're updated whenever I post a new video. Comment down below what video you want to see next and I hope to see you next time. Bye!